It is time for Around the 412 with Smitty and Tyler.
Welcome back to another episode of Around the 412. I am Tyler. With me, as always, is my co-host Smitty. Go follow us on all of our social medias at Around the 412. Also, go check us out on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel. Leave a like on the videos. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a video. And while you're there, go check out the description that we've got over on the listening platforms and on the YouTube videos. We've got year 7 of Rocking Around the 412. It's our Christmas fundraiser that we've been doing the past 6 years. Raised over $32,000 with the help of everybody that's donated to provide children in the local 724-412 area codes the Christmas that they deserve. Also partner with the East Rochester Salvation Army and have adopted kids off of their angel tree so far this year. 12 kids have been adopted off of the angel tree, raised over $1,400 so far this year. Want to continue to push that as much as we can until mid-December is when we typically cut things off because we got to get those gifts and get them to the families. But if you're interested in that, we got a GoFundMe link at the top of the description. It's going to be there from every episode, every video, every single thing we're going to do is going to be there until mid-December. So go check it out, share it. You never know who could see it, and it could make an impact on a lot of these kids. Also, we got a lot of other good links in that description. So go check that out in general.
Yeah, you said mid-December, which is true for the mission overall, but December 9th is going to have to be the day cut off for the Salvation Army stuff because that's when they need everything delivered there. So if you want to get involved specifically with the Salvation Army stuff, December 9th is when I have to have everything or you have to have everything turned into the East Rochester Salvation Army. So keep that date in mind, put it in your calendars. But yes, read the mission, share the mission. We appreciate y'all. This is the Penguin Show. 1 week from tonight, Tyler, we'll be watching regular season Penguins hockey as they open up their season with the New York Rangers. Oh, I say 1 week from tonight, but I'm sorry. We're recording on Wednesday, so 1 week from recording this. By the time you guys are watching or listening to this, it's actually under a week, so even better. Less time in between then and some real puck going down. I'm getting excited. The juices are starting to flow. We got playoff baseball. We got football, which is, obviously I love watching football and playoff baseball, but now we're adding hockey back into the mix. This is the best time of year sports-wise.
100%. I mean, October, if you ask me 100% out of 100 times on 100 times, I will say October is the best sports month, period.
Sports equinox takes place, yeah.
You have NFL, you've got college football, you got NHL, you got NBA, and you got playoff baseball. There is nothing better than the month of October. Yeah, you've got March Madness. Yeah, you've got the playoffs in the NFL. You've got bowl season in college football. But the just the culmination of every single sport that I care about, at least, no offense, playing at the same time is just something that is perfect. Also, even if you're going past sports, October is whenever it starts to get that chill in the air. It's just the best time of the year. And I can't express that enough. Go check out the Around the 412 hoodies. I know we're going to talk about it in a little bit, but everything custom designs, you can get in Around the 412 hoodie yourself. Right now, Go check her out on Facebook. Etsy link not available right now. I know this has been a ton of ads in the beginning of the show, but we're sorry. We had to say that because of the fall. But yeah, October is the best time of year. Hockey's coming back. You mentioned we love football. I was so excited for football. But the difference between football and baseball is I don't want this one sport to go away while another sport is showing up. I want football and hockey to be happening at the same time. Forget about baseball. Nobody wants that to be happening anymore. But football and hockey happening at the same time is great. I'm so excited for hockey season, and I think that the Penguins have an opportunity to be a decent team this season. So going into what could be a make or break it year for the Penguins and what their path is towards a rebuild or a potential playoff berth, I think there's a lot riding on this season. And I think that the excitement I have for hockey being back is revolved around several things. I think that some of the moves they've made in the offseason have intrigued me as much, where I'm just curious to see how this team shakes out. I'm curious to see what it looks like compared to last year, because I think a lot of the discussion was the same as what we had last year. We had a lot of the same players as far as like just getting as many guys as we can to fill spots. It was kind of that same vibe last year as well. Like who would have had several of those guys even cracking the NHL roster that we signed last summer, and they didn't. And that's the case. But this year, we have, I think, better players to fill in those few spots in the bottom six. I think that's going to be a better. I think the defense is still questionable, and I'm curious to see how they play. The goaltending situation is interesting, but just the fact that Penguins hockey is back makes me excited. But I'm excited to see what they do with the opportunity that's in front of them. And going forward, like I said, I think they could be a solid team. I'm not going to say that they're going to win the division. I'm not going to say that they're going to win the East. But when it comes to get back to the playoffs, I think the opportunity is there, and I think it's theirs for the taking. And you saw it last year, you saw it the year before that. They're not far off. It's not like they're missing the playoffs by a ton. They just need to get slightly better, and they could potentially make that push.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in a bit, what you think they have to do to return to the postseason this year after 2 straight years of not making the playoffs. But, we've been watching some preseason hockey, obviously, through training camp. Still haven't seen Erik Karlsson, and we'll talk about that as well. But who we have seen is Harrison Brunicke, just recently drafted by the Penguins, only 18 years old. But, man, this kid looks so far ahead of where I would have expected him to be. You have people pushing for him to make the roster out of the gate and get his little 9-game trial run right out of the gate here at the NHL level. I think it'd be cool to happen. I don't think it's going to. I think that honestly, everybody's starting on level playing field going into this. If you're just picking the best 6 defenseman, he's certainly in there. I mean, I would rather have him than Matt Grzelcyk or Ryan Graves, obviously, who you hope can rebound to some degree this year. I just don't think it's going to happen, but it's cool to see because, you got this guy in the pipeline, and hopefully like him and Owen Pickering can provide something on the blue line for them down the line. If not this season, hopefully maybe in 2025 or early 2026. But how much have you seen from Harrison Brunicke? What have you seen from him? I've seen a lot of people talk about just the way that he moves the puck and skates, comparing him to John Marino in that facet. I'm intrigued, and I think that if you have a prospect like this in such a thin prospect pool like the Penguins have, I think it could really change things.
Yeah, I think that Harrison Brunicke is a player that is, I'm excited that he's in the farm system. Don't know how much he's actually going to play this season. Part of that being that he is a right-sided defenseman right now. And like you said, if you're just picking your 6 best defensemen that you've got in the franchise, he might be in that. But the fact that he plays on the right, you've got Karlsson and Letang there already. You got to figure St. Ivany is going to take up that 3rd spot. And you're not going to want Brunicke just wasting his time in the press box every single week to be like your 7th, 8th defenseman. You're going to have him down in the AHL. So I think, I guess, will he be in the AHL or will he go back to the WHL? I'm not entirely sure how they're going to play that.
I think
out.
W. Yeah. I think
so. I think that there's a chance, I guess, if you're looking at who your best defensemen are, that he could make an NHL debut potentially. But at the same time, probably not going to predict it, but the future looks bright defensively. They've got some good players down there. And on that right side, having guys like St. Ivany and Brunicke for years to come, I know like Letang and Karlsson are not going to be there forever. I think that that's a good player. He's got some good strides, really good skater. He's a puck-moving defenseman, which is something that I really appreciate. And I think that as a comparison goes, John Marino is a fairly good one, like a young John Marino from what we all were hoping his career would flourish as. That's what you're kind of seeing in this preseason with Harrison Brunicke. That's something that's exciting about. I just don't think that we're going to see it this season.
Yeah, no, I'm in the same camp. And to be honest with you, St. Ivany to me has earned that 3rd spot on the right side. I'm fairly excited based off what I saw last year, and I think he's looked solid in this preseason as well. One thing that I am concerned about is the injuries. Blake Lizotte got hurt. Alex Nedeljkovic got hurt. We don't know the severity of those. And I mentioned we haven't seen Erik Karlsson yet do anything. I know that Sullivan said he's skating. Karlsson was actually on a golf podcast today, talked about it and said he plans to be in the lineup on opening night. But it's a bit ominous. Like until you actually see him out there, I think there's going to be just some questions about it. We'll see. We know what Erik Karlsson brings to the table when healthy. He's certainly a game changer. What's going on, everybody? Smitty from Around the 412, and I just want to take a quick second to give a shout out to our folks at Game Changers. Their logo on the screen right now, right above my microphone. Over 2,000 different designs in their catalog. Luxury heavyweight material. I am wearing one of their shirts right now. Best vintage t-shirts in the game. Head over to gamechanger.la or pick6.la to pick up some shirts. And guess what? Use code AT412. Save yourself $10 on your order every single time. Again, gamechanger.la or pick6.la. Best vintage t-shirts in the game. Check them out. Do you have a level of concern right now with the injuries that are taking place? And regardless of what your answer to that is, how do you feel about guys playing in the preseason to begin with? Like we've seen Sid play, we've seen Gino play, like all these guys play in some capacity at some point. Do you think that's the way it should be, or do you think they should maybe not like just rest through the preseason and just accept they're going to be rusty at the beginning of the regular season?
I would say the latter. I don't think,
Okay.
especially for guys of those caliber at their age, I wouldn't want to risk any sort of injury towards them. And I don't think that there's necessarily a point to them to play in the preseason. I think the preseason is figuring out what you have as a coach. And I know that's the preseason for most sports in general, but the difference between like when I compare a sport like football and you compare a sport like hockey is football is only 17 regular season games. That takes a lot more to get ramped up in terms of like the percentage of what it takes away from your season if you're not playing in the preseason towards what it is in the NHL. You've got 82 games across the course of a season, and if it takes you 3 to 4 games to start rusty but then get your feet wet, then so be it. And when you're talking about like a guy like Sid, I don't think that would ever happen. So he could take off the entire preseason, and I don't think it would matter. But even in general, if you're a veteran guy, realistically, you're probably playing in 3 to 4 maybe preseason games in the NHL. If it takes you 3 to 4 games in the NHL regular season to get your feet under you, that's different than if it takes 3 to 4 NFL games to get your feet under you. So I don't think it has much of an impact if they don't play in the regular season. I'm not a big fan of star players like that playing in the regular season. I think they or in the preseason. I think they should just hold off for the regular season. And as far as the injuries they've had go, they do concern me a bit. Blake Lizotte, as much as I think that he's one of their better signings, that one, as far as the injuries they have, is the least concerning to me, just because they've got several players to fill that position with.
Mm-hmm.
But Nedeljkovic is concerning to me because we just mentioned before we started like recording this, like you're basically throwing Yellow Blomqvist to the wolves and you're putting him into the fire immediately. If that's your plan with a backup, if Nedeljkovic can't start the season healthy, which I don't see another realistic option for them as far as a backup goes. I feel like it would have to be Yellow Blomqvist at this point. But maybe they figure something else out. I just think that that's what that would be. So that's concerning to me. You're putting a lot of faith and a lot of hope into Tristan Jarry early on that he can carry you. You don't have to really rely on Yoel Blomqvist to come in and win you a game. And then when it comes to Erik Karlsson, I want him to be healthy for opening day. I trust him. I trust his judgment when he says he's going to be available. But at the same time, we've seen injury history with Erik Karlsson. I don't want this to be a lingering thing. If he has to miss the first couple games of the season because the injury is still nagging him, I would rather that than him to re-aggravate in a game and he's out for a longer period of time. So Erik Karlsson's is a little more concerning to me. Nedeljkovic is the most concerning. And Lizotte, it just sucks because that's a player that I think is going to be a better replacement player than anybody else that would take his spot. But at the same time, you have several players that we are talking about to get these bottom 6 positions. So I don't think it's as big of an impact right away as some of these other guys.
Yeah, I mean, my mind, and I feel like a lot of people's goes immediately to Nedeljkovic just because he ended up being their starter at the end of last season. Like, Tristan Jarry falters again, as opposed to like early in the season last year, he was very good. Both goalies were, but say he struggles out the gate this year. Do you just turn the keys over to Yoel, or what do you or no? Do you say, okay, we know that Tristan isn't like for sure now. He's proven to us he's not going to be the guy long term, but he still needs to be the guy short term because we don't have a a viable option here behind him. Like I think it's a very interesting thing that happens that I don't hope plays out, because hopefully Tristan's just great. Nedeljkovic gets healthy, and you got both them rolling the way they were the first half of last season. But there's a path there where that isn't the case, and then you wonder, what do they do if they don't have Nedeljkovic early in the season?
And then you just hope that Yoel Blomqvist can have his Matt Murray moment and take it over as a rookie.
Yeah.
But I don't want, not that I don't see that happening. I don't want the Penguins to be in a scenario where that has to happen. I would prefer Nedeljkovic get healthy, and you can just send Yoel Blomqvist back to the AHL, where he should be getting more of that professional American ice hockey experience. Then you can have him come up when the time is right.
That's the thing. It's like, it's not like this guy's lighting it up at every level right now. Like, I think there's a lot of concern with what he's going to be, if he's going to be an NHL goaltender. So, it's not just a matter of this guy's just, really pushing for NHL playing time. I think it's more so because we've seen what we have at the NHL level, and we're just hoping and praying that he is the long-term answer. But I don't know that there's anything that he's shown me to feel like he is as of yet.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think that there's anything that's shown to me why he should be in an NHL roster spot besides something like an injury in this case. I think that he needs more of that professional experience in the AHL. And I think that as Penguin fans, you're right, where we probably are just pining for such a different goalie situation that a lot of people are willing to accept the fact that he's a rookie and he might not be as good, but they just want to see a new face in that goalie room. Because like I had mentioned before in previous episodes, whether it is Jarry and Nedeljkovic or Jarry and Smith, the conversation has been the same for the better part of 4 seasons, where it's just the same goalie tandem going into a season that nobody wants to see. And so when you have that happen year in and year out, I can understand why Penguin fans are really riding to see a different player in net. But at the same time, I don't think that player is ready for the NHL. I think that there is some concern for if he's going to be your long-term starter moving forward. I think that the goaltender is definitely a serious look for Kyle Dubas for the future of this team, and you can't rely on him just to take over that spot. But at the same time, he's had a cup of coffee in the AHL. We need to see him for a longer period of time at that AHL level and to see how he continues to develop into this professional hockey. Maybe he turns out to be a good NHL player and turns into our goalie, but I don't want to see that in 2024.
Right. At least early, right out the gate. Let's talk about Sid's left wing. We talked about this before. Was a guy like Rutger McGroarty immediately going to push for that spot? Would it be Anthony Beauvillier, who was one of those numerous offseason acquisitions that they brought in from here? Or would it be Drew O'Connor, who I feel like was the most logical one out of the group, at least to start? Where are you at with that? Has your mind changed from where it originally was after anything happening in training camp or in the preseason? Are we still on the Drew O'Connor train, or is it maybe even though as good as Michael Bunting looked with Dino last year, could he maybe get the bump up? Where are you at with it?
So I'll mention Bunting, just you brought him up, and I'll kind of link it in with what I'm going to say about Sid and with who I think is going to be on the left side. Mike Sullivan, if he's shown anything over his tenure as the Penguins coach, is that he is a creature of habit. He goes back to the same thing, and it's like all reliable for him. He just can't help himself at times. For better or for worse for the teams, he is a creature of habit, which is why I think Bunting is going to stay with Gino. And
the other thing that he's shown, which goes along with that, is it's more about the duos than it is the trio. Like it's duos within.
I mean that is a very fair thing to point out, because when we're talking about Sid, whoever we're putting on that left side is not necessarily part of that duo, because you're going to have Brian Rust on his right wing. So you'd tend to think that would be considered the duo. But I will say, still as a creature of habit with Sullivan, I'm still leaning Drew O'Connor. You've seen it
me too.
in the past from last season. I think that you've seen Drew O'Connor have success on the top wing, and I think that makes him a better player playing with Sid. And I still think that there's even some more untapped potential that we haven't gotten to with Drew O'Connor. And I think that as a full-time player on Sid's wing, you could see a ton of development this season from him. Not to take anything away from Rutger McGroarty or Anthony Beauvillier or whoever else they've thrown into the conversation for that top left spot. I just think Drew O'Connor had the inside track going into the preseason because of his history playing in there. And I don't think that he's done anything to lose it. I don't think anybody else has done anything to take it from him either. And I think that knowing Mike Sullivan, how that guy operates, on opening night, we're going to see Drew O'Connor on the top left wing.
Yeah, I'm with you. And to be honest, I think he's not only like just a product of nobody else jumping him for that spot. I think he's earned it. And he's going into the same season that Brian Rust broke out. Like, I think that this is a very pivotal for Drew O'Connor. I don't want to spoil my thought. Like, next week, we're going to do like a season premiere or season primer preview, whatever you want to say. And we'll talk more about like season predictions that we have and stuff like that. But I'm expecting big things from Drew O'Connor this year. And a big part of that is thinking that he's going to staple himself to Sidney Crosby's left wing for the majority of the season. So that's where I've been at with it. That's where I remain with it. I think he's poised for a big year next to those two. Again, understanding that it's more about Sid and Rust and finding a piece that complements them. But Drew O'Connor, the way that he plays, I think perfectly does complement them. So top 6 DOC. I'm excited about it. The last thing that I want to talk about with you on here before we get out of here, you mentioned at the beginning of this thing that you think they're going to be a good, not great team. You think they could certainly be in the mix. What do you think this team has to do to return to the playoffs after missing it the last 2 years?
For one, I think offensively, you got to get better defensively. I know that's kind of a weird sentence, but I think that your bottom 6 has got to get better defensively. I think that they've done that.
That was supposed to be the strength last year. Yeah, that was supposed to be what they were good at last year.
That's what it's supposed to be. Didn't happen that way. But I do think that they brought in guys to be better defensively than they were last season in the bottom 6. I think that you also have to tap into more scoring down there. And I also think that they've done that in having guys like potentially Rucker McGroarty in your opening lineup. You brought in Kevin Hayes. There's some guys down there that can offer some offense still. And I think that that's something that they need to tap into. Another thing that I'll say that they need to play into the success of the team, they need steady goaltending. I am sick of the back and forth with whether Tristan Jarry is going to be the guy or not. At this point, I don't care. If it's Tristan Jarry, if it's Alex Nedeljkovic, I just need one player to figure it out and be that steady goalie for the remainder of this season. I think that you have to have someone stable in net in order to rely on not necessarily to win you games, to be somebody that you know is not going to blow you a game, because we've seen that all too many times with Penguins goalies in memory. And so whether that's Jarry, whether that's Nedeljkovic, I think they need steady goaltending, and defensively, just don't implode on yourself. I think looking on the surface, it is very easy to say that this is probably a more offensive defensive group than they are going to be defensive, especially when you have guys like Erik Karlsson and Chris Letang. And I don't think that they did any favors with themselves bringing in like Matt Grzelcyk, and then you're still going to have Ryan Graves in your top 6 defensemen more than likely. I mean, I'd be shocked if he wasn't. I think that just don't implode on yourself is what you need to see from your defense. I'm not expecting good defense from this team, from their actual defensemen. That's why I said I think from their offensemen, I think that they need, from their forwards, I think they need to get better defensively. But their defense, I just need you to not be terrible. Need to not absolutely collapse in your own end and just get hemmed in, and then that causes goals. Because we saw that, I think, way too many times with certain pairings on the ice. And that's why I think you need to kind of shield some of those pairings. Like Ryan Graves, if he's going to be a problem, shelter his minutes. Really play down his minutes. Really rely on the Letang and Karlsson lines to carry you to where you want to be defensively. I just don't think that the defense is going to be that great. And that's why I think that instead of saying something good about them, I'm just saying really just don't blow it. Don't absolutely look terrible out there and blow your assignments. Just be assignment sound. I'm not asking you to be a bunch of Lindros, or not Lindros's, Nick Lidstrom's out there. I just want you to be defensively sound. And I think that with a combination of all those things, you could get to a solid hockey team. You could get to a playoff hockey team. And that's also assuming that your superstars that are aging are also going to be scoring at the same clip that they have in for their entire career. But I think that is more likely than some of the other things that I mentioned happening, that the 37-year-old is going to be scoring close to 100 points again.
Yeah, I was on Tip of the Iceberg podcast with Nick and Nick. Be sure to go check that out. If you're listening or watching this, you're probably familiar with the work that they do. But they asked for my prediction. I said that I think they make the playoffs by a point. I think they end up being the final wild card in the Eastern Conference. And I think that, to me, this is largely a similar group. It's, once again, we had the same conversation last year where it's like they got different. I don't know if they got better or worse. They got different. And I think that they're still in that same kind of spot. But I think that they are marginally better. What I really think the difference is going to be, or not be, this is going to determine the season for me, is the goaltending, which is a cop-out thing. It's easy to say. But when you look at the other pieces, if I feel like everything is pretty much going to cancel each other out and they're largely going to be the same group, last year or the year before, with better goaltending, they're in the playoffs. I know that a lot of other things went wrong. The power play sucks. Who knows if that's going to be any better this year? You weren't getting the secondary scoring. You weren't getting the defensive play, really, from the forward group or the defense. But if you had better goaltending in both those situations, you're still in the playoffs. I think that's once again the case this year. So to me, it comes down to Tristan Jarry and/or Alex Nedeljkovic and/or Yoel Blomqvist. So that's where I'm at with it.
Yeah, you mentioned the power play. I think that that's something that I want to see when I say immediate impact, I think that there needs to be a sample size over it. If they go 0-4 in their first game, I'm not going to lose my mind. But I do think that when you look at what you have offensively still with the power play and the coaching staff changes, I hope the new coaching staff is able to figure it out a little bit more than Reardon was able to. I think that if you look at last season, I mean, you mentioned it with the goaltending too, but like just looking at the power play, how many games would we have won or at least gone into overtime and got another point with, or just changed the whole facet of that in particular game if we're scoring one or two more power play points in these games? I just don't think that it can be undersaid how bad this power play truly is. It's like bottom 2 in the league. And if they can get to league average, we're talking about like 10 more points in the standings.
Yeah. Even if they're like 25th, they probably make the playoffs.
Seriously. I mean, it's unimaginably awful how bad their power play was.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm excited to get everybody's thoughts on what you think the Penguins need to do or needs to happen for the team to return to the playoffs. So be sure to hit us in the comments with your thoughts on that, questions for a future episode. Tyler, do you have anything else Penguins related?
Nothing really. I'm just excited to have hockey back. Like I mentioned, October,
one player
best time of the year.
Specific. One player specific. Does Jesse Puljujarvi make the team?
Make the team as in be on the opening roster, or he's in the no.
So you're saying you don't think he's going to make the cut? Smitty from around the 412 here, and while I may not have much hair, the hair that I do have will not be cut by anybody besides Keek at Keek's Barbershop. My friend Christian Circle, been with us since day one. Keek's Barbershop, located 401 Burkitch Way, Suite 2 in Beaver, PA. Download the app The Cut. Book an appointment with Christian today, or you can do walk-in with Tony or Ashley. But again, Keek's Barbershop, 401 Burkitch Way, Suite 2 in Beaver, PA. Go check them out. Old school vibe in there. Absolutely love it. Cannot recommend them enough. Wouldn't go anywhere else. Maybe I'll see you there. Yeah, I don't either, to be honest. We'll see how. I mean, Blake Lizotte, if he's out, is going to open up a spot for somebody. We'll see who that would be, the first guy up in that scenario, but we'll see. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, of course. Hit us in the comments, like I said, with your thoughts on anything we talked about, a question for a future episode, all that good stuff. In the description, whether you're watching or listening, bunch of links, including year 7, rocking around the 412, as Tyler told you about at the beginning. We've raised over $32,000 in the first 6 years of doing so. Dude, everything runs together at this point, and I've done 4 podcasts today. But yeah, this is year 7 of doing it.
What a subtle flex.
We also started We started partnering up with the East Rochester Salvation Army as of the last 2 years, and we'll continue to do so going forward. So if you want to get involved, that ends December 9th. If you want to be involved with the Angel Tree at the East Rochester Salvation Army, so you either have to have everything to me or have everything back to the Salvation Army by December 9th. But you can donate up until probably, I haven't set a deadline for that, but probably the second week of December, just so I have enough time to get everything and collect everything, and then have to collect my thoughts as well. If you're listening somewhere else, be sure to leave us a 5-star review and subscribe over there. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast from. Just search around the 412 and you'll find us there. Also, big shout out to the other sponsors, GameChangers.la, Pick6.la. Save yourself $10 using code AT412 over there. There's some Pens designs. They got, Lemieux. They got Yager. Hopefully a bunch more on the way. Sid is over there as well. I can't believe there's not a Gino one. I got to get on that. Or Letang, now that I'm thinking about it. They should at least have those ones. And then I'm going to push for a Michael Bunting one probably. And maybe a Drew O'Connor one with the way that the season that I think he's going to have. So anyway, go check it out.
Except it's got to say Doc.
$10. Yeah, absolutely. Can't say Drew O'Connor. I mean, that would look too many characters. It's got to say DOC. Yeah. And shout out to Teach Barbershop, 401 Burkitch Way, Suite 2 in Beaver, PA. Download the app, The Cut, book an appointment, or you can do a walk-in with Tony or Ashley as well. For Tyler, for Smitty, this has been the Around the 412 Penguins show. We'll talk to you next time.